shoulders, or back? Well, QC Kinetics concentrates these impactful treatments right at the source of your pain, directly applying healing properties where you need them most. And best of all, you walk into the office and you walk right out after treatment. No surgery, no downtime, and patients are raving about the results. So what does living life to the fullest look like to you? Whatever it is, don't wait one more day. Get started today with a call to QC Kinetics for a complimentary consultation. Call them at 904-274-5522. That's 904-274-5522 with locations in Mandarin and Ponte Vedra.
Progressive presents Precious Moments.
Nothing beats driving cross-country in our RV.
This is so much fun, Dad. I don't even need to look at my phone.
It's not the destination, it's the journey. Jinx!
The exchange you just heard didn't actually happen, but it could. Bundle your home and other vehicles with Progressive and you could use the savings to make sure that RV is always ready to hit the road. Who knows, your teenager might actually put down her phone for 5 minutes. It could happen. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, the official personal injury law firm of the Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. The sports world keeps spinning, and the local conversation continues. Now, Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
And a very good Thursday evening to you, Jacksonville. It is Hacker After Dark, 1010XL 92.5 FM with Dylan Denmark. The Hacker Ryan Green with you. Glad you are spending part of your Thursday evening with us. Interesting day, right? Here in Jacksonville, Riley Patterson, the kicker, who sent the Dallas game to overtime, final play of the game that week last year, and won the playoff game against the Chargers with a game-winning field goal, is now a Detroit Lion because the Jaguars traded him for what I believe is a 2026 conditional 7th-round pick. I guess a can of Spam was not available on the Detroit pantry there in the Lions kitchen up there in Pontiac, Michigan. So a 2026 7th-round conditional pick because the Jacksonville Jaguars today go out and sign Brandon McManus, 9 years with the Denver Broncos. Got to be honest, that caught me off guard a little bit. But because we've been doing this so long, we got guys, right? We got guys in every NFL market. So I called my guy in Denver, Kyle Newman of the Denver Post. And he's going to join us here in about 20 minutes to talk about Brandon McManus. As I was telling Baloo there on the 2-minute drill, that was weird earlier this week. McManus tweeted out that he had been released by the Broncos on Tuesday, I think before the team announced it on social media, which is something you very, very rarely see. So who really knows what happened there? Does Kyle Newman with the Denver Post? We're going to find out. And exactly what type of kicker did the Jaguars get with Brandon McManus. So more on that in a moment. So we will talk to Kyle Newman out in Denver. Also Chad Forbes at NFL Draft Bites on Twitter. If you follow him, you know that he speaks his mind. He doesn't sugarcoat a whole lot. So we'll talk about the Jaguars. We'll talk about the AFC South and more with Chad Forbes. All that coming up in hour number 1. We'll keep you updated. Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals in the NBA playoffs set to tip off in about a half an hour. You got the Miami Heat looking to close out Boston. Miami up 3-1. If Boston wins tonight, it gets sort of interesting. It was 3-0. A Boston win tonight makes it 3-2, going back to Miami for Game 6. Can Boston do it? We'll see. We'll keep you updated as the night goes on. But as we do every night, to kick it off here on Hacker After Dark, we do give you a big deal of the night and Dylan Denmark. Let's do that right now.
Time now for the big deal of the night.
What's the big deal? What is the big deal?
No big deal.
It is a big deal.
On Hacker After Dark.
So here is my thoughts on Brandon McManus and Riley Patterson out. Again, people thought I had an agenda when I tweeted this out earlier. I just simply tweeted out the facts of the situation. Last year, McManus in Denver was 28 for 36 in field goals with a long of 55. Riley Patterson here in Jacksonville was 30 for 35 with a long of 53. The reason I believe Brandon McManus is now a Jacksonville Jaguar, well, it's twofold. Number one, kickoffs. Riley Patterson was not great on kickoffs. I think Brandon McManus has a stronger leg. I think that played a factor. Number two, the Jaguars had a lot of trepidation trying long field goals with Riley Patterson, right? There was always concern, can he hit a 52-yarder? His long was 53. This is not 1997, all right? In today's day and age in the NFL, your kicker needs to be able to hit from 53 and it not be the long on the year. So I do think McManus had a stronger leg. Now, he tried a lot of 50-yarders last year out in Denver, tried a 60-yarder or two. In fact, his career long is 61. He hit that back in 2021. But what Brandon McManus gives you is he gives you a guy where you're willing to try, more 55, 56, 57-yard type field goals than you ever would have considered with Riley Patterson. I don't hate it, but I do think Riley Patterson was a good kicker. I think he became a very reliable kicker. You had a lot of confidence in Riley Patterson towards the end of last year, particularly with the game-tying kick against Dallas and obviously the game-winning kick against the Chargers. But I don't think the Jaguars had any way of knowing a guy like Brandon McManus would be available. He gets cut on Tuesday, and he finds work here in Jacksonville today. I was surprised that Jacksonville got rid of Riley Patterson as quick as they did. Not a competition in training camp, nothing. Just, you're out of here. Trade you to Detroit. The thought was they were releasing him. Come to find out, they got a conditional 7th-round pick from Detroit, I believe, in 2026. I wasn't kidding about that. But what does this move tell us today about the Jaguars and about where they are going forward? I think it tells us, and I think you can look at the situation, being good or slightly above average, like Riley Patterson was, isn't going to be good enough to compete in this AFC. And you say, well, Hacker, it's just a kicker. Well, yeah, it's just a kicker until in week 2 against Kansas City, you have a 55-yarder to win the game, trailing by 2. And do you feel more comfortable with Riley Patterson or with newly acquired Brandon McManus? The Jaguars are in a conference where slightly above average will not cut it any longer. You need to be good. You need to be really good, if not great, at as many positions on the football field as you can. And as much as I liked Riley Patterson, and as much as the memories that Riley Patterson made for Jaguar fans with that kick against Dallas, with the obvious game winner against the Chargers in the playoffs, Brandon McManus, on paper, has a stronger leg and is a better kicker, a more experienced kicker, and can kick it from farther out, from longer ranges, which is why you make the move. Again, being slightly above average now in the AFC when you have Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Tua, Russell Wilson, Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not going to cut it anymore, man. You got to get as much talent as you possibly can. And when you see a situation where you can upgrade even slightly from Riley Patterson to Brandon McManus, that's why you do it. And that's why I think the Jaguars did that today. In fact, Brandon McManus, one could argue, is their most valuable free agent addition this offseason. Think about all the other veterans they brought in. Josh Wells, offensive lineman from Tampa, right? Chandler Brewer, offensive lineman from the Rams. Dearness Johnson, running back Cleveland. Michael Dogby, defensive line from, Arizona. Henry Mondu, defensive line from New York. These are guys, man. McManus is going to have a much larger impact than a majority of the other veteran free agents they brought in. Again, we will talk Brandon McManus. We will talk about the kicking situation coming up later on in about 15 minutes, a little under 15 minutes, with Kyle Newman of the Denver Post, as he is set to join us here on Hacker After Dark. ESPN.com, along those lines, is releasing their off-season grades. And they released 16 today. They're releasing 16 tomorrow. The 16 they released today were Bill Barnwell's of ESPN.com's 16 basically most underwhelming offseason teams. Teams that may have gotten worse or certainly did not get a whole lot better. The Jaguars were on this list, but they were at the top of the list. They were number 17. Interestingly enough, Houston, Indianapolis, and Tennessee, all the AFC South rivals of the Jaguars, were also on this list, but considerably further down. I don't think the Jaguars had a bad offseason. Again, I understand losing Chris Manhertz and Arden Key and Marvin Jones. The big one was Jawan Taylor. But I take you back to Arrowhead, to Kansas City. What are we talking, 123 some odd days ago now? And the Jaguars walking off that field, losing that game, the 22 guys that started for the Jaguars in that AFC divisional playoff game, 21 of them are back in Jaguar uniforms. 21. Chris Manhertz was not a starter. Marvin Jones was not a starter. And Arden Key only played 41% of the snaps. He was not a starter. So they did not lose that much. The big loss was Jawan Taylor. And what they've done with that is they draft a first-round guy in Anton Harrison in the hopes that Anton Harrison can be the replacement for Jawan Taylor. But all this talk about how the Jaguars had a bad offseason, they had a quiet offseason, to me there's a big difference between a bad offseason and a quiet offseason. 21 of the 22 guys that started that Kansas City playoff game are back here in Jacksonville. That doesn't take into account Calvin Ridley, who was basically your best free agent addition, although you got him at the trade deadline last year. That doesn't take into account getting Ben Barch back. At some point, you would expect Cam Robinson will be back. We're still waiting on some clarification from the league on that. And then you add 13 rookies, including Anton Harrison. So for anybody to sit there and tell me the Jaguars are worse off now than they were on January 21st, they're not as good now as they were on January 21st, I completely disagree. Completely disagree. Getting Calvin Ridley alone makes you better, right? I mean, if you had the option of keeping Jawan Taylor and the Calvin Ridley trade never happening, what would you choose? If I were a betting man, I would say most of you would want Calvin Ridley over Jawan Taylor. The issue comes in with some depth, right? You lose Chris Manhertz. Well, you draft a second-round tight end in Britton Strange. You lose Marvin Jones. Well, you got Calvin Ridley. I'll take that one. And I think Jamal Agnew might have more of a chance as a wide receiver this year. Arden Key, again, you got to go find another Arden Key. Is that Devin Lloyd? Can he play 40% of the snaps on the outside as an edge rusher? With Chad Muma there at middle linebacker, you draft Ventrell Miller. You obviously have Foye Oluokun. Do you need to find a veteran? Again, you signed Arden Key in April of last year. He comes in, plays 41% of the snaps. According to him, he really helped shape Jacksonville into the city that it is. He goes to Tennessee. That, to me, is the one guy you haven't necessarily replaced. But again, for every 100 snaps, he was out there for 41 of them last year. You should be able to replace a guy like that. Can Tyler Lacey? Can Yasir Abdullah, the two rookies, help in that? Of course. That's the hope, right? But again, I don't like lists like the one ESPN.com put out today. And again, they didn't bash Jacksonville necessarily. They just said they might have gone backwards a little bit. They're not necessarily as good as they were when the season ended. Again, totally disagree. 21 of those 22 guys are back. You add Calvin Ridley. That, to me, ends the conversation. Year 2 for Trevor Lawrence with Doug Peterson, with Press Taylor, with Mike McCoy. Year 2 for Travis Etienne. Another year removed from that foot injury. Year 2 in the system for guys like Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram. At this point last year, Kirk, Jones, and Ingram's heads were spinning. They had just gotten here. They had just signed free agent contracts. They were just now getting into OTAs, just now learning the playbook, just now learning their teammates. Now they're established. You could say the same thing for Sheriff, Aluakin, Fadakasi, Darius Williams, all those guys. In no way, shape, or form do I think the Jaguars have taken a step back. I'm not saying they're leaps and bounds better than they were on January 21st, but I don't think they're worse off either. 641-1010 is the phone number if you want to get involved on the phone line or on the text line designed by Lifetime Enclosures. We are absolutely loaded tonight. Let's go out to Denver, Colorado. Our guy out in Denver, Kyle Newman of the Denver Post. Let's talk Brandon McManus. Why did it end for Brandon McManus in Denver? He got released on Tuesday. What is Jacksonville getting with Brandon McManus? And, oh, by the way, the Denver Nuggets are in the NBA Finals. I might sneak in a Nuggets question as well. Kyle Newman of the Denver Post next on Hacker After Dark.
Bringing you Jaguars players, coaches, and breaking news year-round.
We got to go back to our fundamentals.
On the home of the Jaguars.
Work on three, 1, 2, 3.
1010XL.
Here's Linda Beaver.
Did you hear what's happening? Beaver Toyota and Beaver Chevrolet are spring cleaning. New inventory on the ground means the old has to go. Take advantage of the lowest prices of the new year by saving thousands on thousands of vehicles priced to sell. New and pre-owned prices have been reduced, and all sales associates have been instructed to give maximum value on all trades. But you better hurry. That's right. Best deals go first. Head to Beaver Toyota in St. Augustine or Beaver Chevrolet in Jacksonville to take advantage of the spring cleaning sale. We're here to wow you.
Are you an electrician looking for better pay and benefits? Miller Electric Company has the industry-leading compensation package. Electricians are eligible for a signing bonus up to $1,000. Now, they're partnering with the Jaguars on their new performance facility, the Miller Electric Center. Miller Electric has opportunities for you to work on some of the most exciting projects right here in Jacksonville. Whether you're experienced or not, visit MillerCareers.com, an equal opportunity employer. That's MillerCareers.com.
Here's your 1010XL First Coast Community Calendar.
If you have gently worn, used, or new shoes you can donate, please take them to the CHSC Shoe Drive at Warrington Park on Boland Street, Saturday from 9 a.m. to 8:30 p.m.
Stroke can cause death or permanent injury, and May is Stroke Month. If you have sudden weakness or numbness, trouble seeing, walking, or speaking, and severe headache, seek treatment. Learn more at radiology-info.org.
Your child can register for Police Athletic League basketball, tackle football, or cheerleading at jaxpalsports.org.
The 5-Star Veterans Center of Jacksonville is the place homeless veterans can go to recover, recharge, retrain, and reconnect. Learn more at 5starveteranscenter.org.
If you're involved in a community event and you'd like us to help spread the word, find out how at 1010XL.com.
Trivia Tuesday, $5 Whiskey Wednesday, Thirsty Thursday, Discount Cocktail Friday, Live Music Friday and Saturday, MLB Baseball every week. Players Grill has something for you all week long. Players Grill, where the neighborhood meets.
This Day in Sports History is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists.
On May 25th, 1935, Jesse Owens equals or breaks 4 world records in 45 minutes at a Big Ten meet, remembered as the greatest 45 minutes ever in sport.
Borland Groover is expanding in St. Johns County. Look for the new Advanced Surgery Center and Medical Facility, open in Durbin Crossing in the summer of 2024. Learn more about it at BorlandGroover.com.
Life is about choices and the decisions you make. I'm David Robbins with Epstein & Robbins. If you're convicted of a DUI, you'll have to face severe consequences. Walking through the doors of the courthouse or appearing at a bond hearing can be extremely intimidating. Without the right lawyer, you're likely to make the wrong decision. Let our team help you make the right decisions in court. Epstein & Robbins, the right choice.
Epstein & Robbins, fighting for your rights since 1975.
Oh boy, not again.
Do you feel this way every time there's rain in the forecast? Amy Salt, owner of CrossFit Salt to Tear in the Riverside area, definitely did.
I had major rain anxiety from all the water collecting outside my gym. That's why I'm so happy I reached out to Clearwater Drainage. John came out, designed a system that moved the water off of my property, and all my kettlebells are now dry. I'm sleeping so much better at night.
Clearwater Irrigation.
And drainage, too.
Clearwater Jacks
StoneCore.com.
Are you embarrassed by your ugly, cracked concrete driveway? Need to enhance your home's curb appeal? StoneCore on Phillips Highway is your one-stop shop for all your outdoor needs. Replacing with new stone pavers will transform your driveway into a stunning work of art. Say goodbye to unsightly concrete and hello to beautiful, durable pavers that last for years. Visit StoneCore today and let's beautify your home together. StoneCore.co. We do outdoors better.
At Andy's Automotive and Truck Services, they know that your company's fleet is more than just a bunch of cars and trucks. It's your livelihood, your reputation, your pride. So when you need routine fleet maintenance or emergency repairs, Andy's offers after-hours and mobile service to minimize your downtime and keep your fleet running like new. While you care for your employees and customers, rest assured Andy's Automotive will take care of your fleet. Visit the team at andysats.com.
Hey, it's Matt Hayes, and I said yes to Yas, Dr. Mitchell Yas, and the Yas method. Now I know, you've probably tried medications, treatments, injections, even surgery. Maybe the reason you're still in pain is because they're treating the wrong thing and not addressing the root causes. Well, I know from personal experience, this does happen. But I found the best kept secret in pain elimination, Dr. Yas and the Yas method. Call him today, 904-906-YASS, and say yes to Yas.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, the official personal injury law firm of the Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
Back here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville. We are glad you are with us. And a somewhat surprising move, I guess. Riley Patterson, the kicker for the Jaguars last year, is gone. Brandon McManus, the longtime kicker for the Denver Broncos, is now in Jacksonville. McManus was released in Denver on Tuesday. He finds work less than 48 hours later here in Duval County. Let's go to Denver. Let's talk about Brandon McManus. What kind of kicker is he, and why is he no longer a Bronco? Kyle Newman of the Denver Post. He's our guy out in Denver, and he's always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL. Kyle, how you doing, man?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me on, as always, when Broncos and Jaguars worlds collide.
Yeah, no question about it. It certainly caught me off guard today, Kyle. Let's start with McManus in particular. Long Bronco career. In fact, I think he was one of the last from one of the Super Bowl teams. I want to say Super Bowl 50. Why was he released earlier this week out there in Denver?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the final member of the Super Bowl 50 championship team, still on the team, and now he's no longer a Bronco. And really, I think it comes down to money, and it comes down to the season he had last year. You look at what he did last year, it was one of his career lows, not total low, but 77% field goal percentage, and he was 8 of 15 from distance. That was 50 yards or longer. And granted, he was asked to do a lot of those kicks last year and over really the last couple years. But I think it came down to Sean Payton looked at kind of what they were getting for the money they were spending for a kicker, and they decided it wasn't worth it. And you also look at the close games that the Broncos have lost. Perhaps maybe that has to do with it. Broncos are 4-11 over the last 3 years in points in games decided by 4 points or fewer. So, those McManus kicks sometimes have really hurt the Broncos, even if they're first quarter, second quarter, et cetera. And I think, Sean Payton just wanted a clean slate here.
Well, it was interesting, right? Because McManus himself tweeted out the fact that he was getting released by Denver. I think he put it on social media before the team even did. And they did it in the month of May, almost the month of June. And Peyton's been on the job there for, 4.5 months. So is this just something they thought about? There was no underlying issue there, was there?
The timing is very curious, like you said. And I think everyone here in the press corps in Denver was a little puzzled by it. And to be honest, I can't put my finger on exactly what it is. I said, obviously, the money, they're going to either save, $2.5, maybe $3.5 million, depending on how they designate them. But it's a weird timing coming after the draft. And of course, there are still some free agents out there, a la Robbie Gould, Mason Crosby, Ryan Suckup, etc. But you got to imagine, I mean, Brandon McManus is going to turn in just as good of a season as any of those guys are capable of, I think. You know, if last year was a down year for him, 77.8% is not terrible. Now, granted, for what he was making and being a longstanding member of the team, maybe they expected more. Maybe they expected, you know, that 2019 McManus who made 85% of his tries. And even the few years, you know, a couple years after that, he was in the lower 80 percentages. So the drop off is a question. The miss in the long kicks, that's another question. But you know, Justin Tuckers don't grow on trees around here. Like, it's hard to find a guy, I think, who's going to be extremely consistent from 50 plus. Like, if you want a guy who's 75% or more from 50 plus, that's going to be a tough ask. McManus, as I mentioned, 50% from 50 plus last year.
A couple of more for Kyle Newman of the Denver Post. The Jaguars add kicker Brandon McManus today and release kicker Riley Patterson all at the same time. So certainly some news here in the city of Jacksonville. Kyle, when it comes to McManus, some of the things we've heard today, he's got a stronger leg than Riley Patterson. As far as kickoffs, things of that sort, understanding he played in the altitude in Denver, but was he pretty good at getting the ball into the end zone on kickoffs?
Oh, yeah. That was no problem at all. So this is solely definitely about his field goal ability. But again, let's also note in McManus's favor, and I mentioned he was 50% from distance. He was actually better than that. He was 8 of 13 from 50 plus. So still pretty decent, but he also was dealing with so much variability on the special teams units over the last few years, including at holder and at snapper. So that has to be considered into as well. And I guarantee you he's probably going to have a good season with the Jaguars. I'm anxious to see who the Broncos can backfill McManus with, and if they can indeed get more production for perhaps less money out of the new guy they bring in.
Yeah, and one of the thoughts here as well is that even though Riley Patterson was clutch last year, a couple of the big kicks he missed were against Kansas City in the regular season. As far as McManus in the fourth quarters and close ball games, things of that sort, how would you describe him as a kicker?
He's been good, but he has missed a couple over the last few years that would have won them some games, including week one of the Russell and Hackett era. Of course, it was a 64-yarder, if I do recall, against the Seahawks in the opening game of the season that he missed, and he had enough leg. He just missed it wide right. But I think those are the type of kicks where if he makes a couple more of those last year, this move might not be happening. But I think Sean Payton sees the slight variability and inconsistency in those clutch kicks, those distance kicks. He says, you know what, there's enough free agents on the market, the guys I just mentioned, and especially Mason Crosby. Let's not forget the CU tie and his long-standing longevity with the Packers and everything he did there. That could be a very good fit here. So I think the Paytons, Sean and George, maybe looked at this and said, hey, maybe we can get somebody with a little more consistency, especially from distance, and that's what we need.
Final moments here. Kyle Newman of the Denver Post. Kyle, we'll have you back on a month from now or so. We're in the midst of our division preview right now in the AFC East. We'll hit the AFC West, I believe, in 3 or 4 weeks, so we'll go more in depth. But a quick Cliff Notes version of that. How excited are they out there in Denver for Sean Payton?
Oh, they're extremely excited, I think, but it's tempered excitement, you know, because obviously there was a lot of hype last year for Nathaniel Hackett and Russ and Let's Ride, and boy, that 5-11 flop hit like a bucket of cold water, I think, to this fan base. Just kind of realizing, okay, so we're not actually a quarterback away. Or did we get a quarterback past his prime? I think there's just so many questions swirling right now. It's almost tempering the excitement. And then, of course, we just have the Avs in the playoffs. They got knocked out. The Nuggets are in the NBA Finals. So, like, there's a little distraction right now before Broncos country full bore turns its attention to the team, what they're doing throughout the summer and heading into fall camp and everything. But it's definitely tempered excitement. Like, I think there's a feeling like, okay, we got somebody who knows what he's doing running the ship now, but there's also like, well, is Russ going to be good? Is our O-line going to be good? Like, are we going to win games? Can we beat the Chiefs? They've lost 15 in a row to Kansas City. So I don't think anyone's jumping for joy just yet. They want to see some wins and some wins early in the season before the hype really gets rolling.
It's like a player swap. The Jaguars get McManus from Denver. Denver gets Manhertz from the Jaguars. Of course, Chris Manhertz signed with Denver this offseason. Hey, Kyle, final question. You mentioned the Denver Nuggets. What's the city's excitement about the Nuggets waiting for the NBA Finals to begin a week from tonight?
Oh, it's off the charts, man. I mean, I think there's a lot of excitement. There's also like a kind of chip on the city's shoulder because, all the national pundits, of course, were hyping up the Lakers in this last series. Nikola Jokic finished as runner-up to Joel Embiid in the MVP, and strong argument you can make that he should have won his third straight MVP based off of how these guys have played in the playoffs, Jokic versus Embiid. So there's a lot of excitement, and I got to tell you, I think the Nuggets, whoever comes out of this Eastern Conference Finals, be it the Heat or the Celtics, if they somehow miraculously claw back, the Nuggets are going to be the favorite in the finals. And that's crazy to say, but Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray and just the whole cast they have around them, including Aaron Gordon, which was a huge pickup, they're going to be the favorites. And I got the Nuggets in 6 over whoever goes to out of the Eastern Conference Finals.
Kyle Newman of the Denver Post. Brandon McManus, the newest Jacksonville Jaguar after a 9-year career out there in Denver. Kyle, like we said, we'll call your phone about a month from now. We certainly appreciate it, man.
Sounds great. Look forward to talking to you, man.
There you go, Kyle Newman of the Denver Post. So quickly on Brandon McManus, he's made 223 field goals in his NFL career. He's a career 81% field goal kicker. He's never made fewer than 20 kicks dating back to 2015. But statistically, and again, this goes into the numbers, he was at 80% or higher in 18, 19, 20, and 21. Last year, he dipped to 77.8 as he was 28 of 36. Now, I remember that game against Seattle, that opening Monday night game. Remember how the Broncos didn't call a timeout and they rushed McManus out there for a 64-yard field goal? It was ridiculous, right? And he actually had the leg. He just didn't make it. He also missed, I think, 5 from 50-plus. So of his 8 misses, 6 of them were 50 yards and further. He made almost everything from 49 yards and in. So we'll see, but certainly it did catch some people off guard as Riley Patterson out, Brandon McManus in. And that's the one position, you talk about all the struggles this Jaguar organization has had, and good gracious, have they had struggles. Basically at every position imaginable. Kicker is the one. I mean, you went Mike Hollis, right, at the beginning of the Jaguar franchise. Then there was a 1 or 2 year lull, but then Josh Scobie arrived, and he was here for about a decade. Then there was a 1 or 2 year lull, and then Jason Myers was above average, and he's actually turned into a Pro Bowl kicker in Seattle. But after Jason Myers, then you had Josh Lambo. And after Lambo, you had trouble finding a guy, but then you thought you had found one in Riley Patterson until you release Riley earlier today or trade him, and you bring in Brandon McManus. So hopefully McManus, even though he's 31 years old, he can be your guy now for the next 4, 5, or 6 years. Because, again, talking about a kicker on May 25th may not be the most exciting thing. When that kicker needs to make a 53-yarder to beat Patrick Mahomes on September 17th, he becomes the most important guy on the field. So hopefully the Jaguars found one there with veteran Brandon McManus from the Denver Broncos. They are just about to tip off at the TD Garden. Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Miami leads 3-1 over Boston, looking to close it out tonight. Boston looking to win to force it back to Miami for a Game 6. Of course, as we know, no NBA team has ever come back from an 0-3 deficit. That's where this series was. Boston won Game 4 to make it 3-1. Now Game 5 tipping off, and we will certainly keep you updated. Coming up next, back into the world of the National Football League. Let's talk Jaguars. Let's talk AFC South. Let's talk AFC as a whole with Chad Forbes at NFL Draft Bites on Twitter. Chad tells you what he thinks, man. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. A lot of people like him. A lot of people don't like him. I always respect his opinion. He joins us next. Hacker After Dark on a Thursday in the city of Jacksonville, and we are glad you are with us.
First of all, congratulations on the show.
Join the 1010XL Podcast Network.
How do you like being in a real studio?
Now you can find all your favorite 1010XL podcasts in your platform of choice.
Beach towel? Check. Beach chair? Check. The Summer Starts Here sales event at Arlington Toyota? Check. Now is the time, folks, to get hot deals on even hotter Toyotas. Even better, Arlington has over 300 new Toyotas available. And with every new Toyota purchase at Arlington, you get their lifetime warranty. That's unlimited time and miles. I think this is going to be your best summer yet. Shop the Summer Starts Here sales event at Arlington Toyota today. 10939 Atlantic Boulevard and online at arlingtontoyota.com.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine. It can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Tobacco-Free Florida knows how hard it is to quit nicotine, which is why we offer different quit options to choose from for free, like 24/7 quit coaches available over the phone and free 2-week starter kits of quit aids. We're even experimenting with 80s pop music.
I'm giving you up, giving you up, giving you up. I'm letting you go, I'm letting you never come back to stone. I'll never come back to stone. I'll never come back. I'm giving you up.
Or maybe we'll just stick to the ways we know work. Visit tobaccofreeflorida.com or call 1-877-YOU-CAN-NOW for free nicotine patches.
Superior Fence and Rail knows about exceptional customer service. From the first call to the final inspection, Superior's team provides first-class care with great communication, friendly installers, and quality fence products. There's a reason why Superior is the top-rated fence company in Jacksonville. So get off the fence and call Superior Fence and Rail for your new fence today.
When you're on the fence, about a fence, SuperiorFenceandRail.com.
Football season may be over, but Mia's Quick Hits isn't going anywhere, and it's still driven by my friends at Arlington Toyota. Join me for my Monday morning Quick Hits plus college hoops breakdowns during the week, only on the video and social channels of 1010XL.
Hey guys, I'm Daniel Heilman from the brand new Fourscore Golf Tavern. We do elevated food, drinks, and golf simulator fun. If you're looking for a delicious meal or maybe a spot for a client, we have lunch specials every day. Need to entertain a few people from out of town? Easy. Just reserve one of our 4 simulator bays. Lunch service starts at 11 a.m. daily. Located in San Marcos Square, we'll see you at lunch at Fourscore Golf Tavern.
Hi, I'm Sean Monahan from Monahan Jewelers in Atlantic Beach. We're your local family jeweler for 46 years in Jacksonville with a huge selection of diamonds, gemstones, and pre-owned Rolex watches. And Monahan Jewelers is your store for expert jewelry repair turned around in 1 or 2 days. Most jewelry stores take 2 weeks or more, and many stores send your jewelry somewhere else for repair. At Monahan Jewelers, our jewelry repair is done in-house by expert craftsmen, and Monahans can turn around most repairs in a day or 2. So bring your jewelry repair to Monahan Jewelers in Atlantic Beach.
Denny Thompson here. Tyson Sound & Security is hiring salespeople right now. If you want to sell new tech security cameras or home automation, Tyson Sound & Security is looking for you. Tyson Sound & Security is hiring for sales positions, and they will train you to be successful. Apply online at TysonSoundandSecurity.com or call 762-1000. That's 762-1000. Hiring for sales positions right now. Apply online at TysonSoundandSecurity.com or call 762-1000. Equal opportunity employer.
This is Hayes Carline for Kingfish Pest Control. Look, warmer weather now means mosquito, flea, and tick season is here.
These pests are out for blood, but you don't have to let them win. Protect your home and family with Kingfish Pest Control. As a Kingfish customer myself, I know their products are safe for kids and pets. Plus, with a 100% satisfaction guarantee, you can relax knowing your yard is pest-free. Call today, mention the Jags to receive 10% off your initial service. That's Kingfish Pest Control, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Instant Keys. You don't have to go to the dealer. Instant Keys comes to you.
Instant Keys saves the day if you have lost or broken keys. They can program new keys and remotes for nearly every make and model of vehicle at a fraction of the dealership cost. Fast, honest, and reliable locksmith service. Call 722-1111.
Instant Keys. Instant Keys. You don't have to go to the dealer. Instant Keys comes to you.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, the official personal injury law firm of the Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. This is Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
Back here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville. We are glad you are with us. The Jaguars in the midst of OTAs will be back out on the field next Tuesday, watching the Jaguars enter week number 2. Minicamp less than a month away, and it is hard to believe that training camp about 2 months away here in Jacksonville. With that, let's recap the Jaguar offseason, including an interesting signing earlier this afternoon. Chad Forbes at NFL Draft Bites on Twitter. He's one of our favorites here on 1010XL, and he's always kind enough to join us in the city of Jacksonville. Chad, how you doing, man?
My optimism about the Jaguars was at all-time high prior to this draft, and beyond the Anton Harrison selection in the first round, their picks made no sense. I mean, it was confusing.
Well, you know, it's funny you mentioned that because I was going to lead off with you gave the Jaguars an off-season grade of an A on social media. You normally are a guy that can be critical of some of the Jaguar moves, as people that follow you on social media know. So even with the draft class included now, Chad, what is your thought in totality about the Jaguar offseason?
In my old age, I'm starting to realize that at times I might be wrong. And I'm giving Doug and the general manager a little bit of a benefit of the doubt here. Doug Peterson knows tight ends. Brenton Strange felt like a big reach in the second round. The running back in the third round just felt like what this general manager does in every draft. He loves to take another running back. I thought they were all set at running back. They extended the backup. They've got Travis Etienne. Now they're bringing in Tank Bigsby. Great. You've got depth at a non-premium position. They've also got D'Ernest Johnson. They've got Snoop Connor. So I don't get that. And then their infatuation with linebackers, and they draft another one in the fourth round. I don't know how they're going to get Muma, Devin Lloyd, and Foley on the field already. And now they've got to add this kid in the fourth round. I get it, he could be a special teamer, but at what point do you say we have enough linebackers? And then just all the maneuvering in the draft. What was the purpose? Was it to add, a bunch of seventh rounders, like the defensive tackle from North Carolina that, frankly, I haven't even ever heard of? So it just didn't make sense to me.
You know, it's interesting. They had 13 picks. Other than Anton Harrison, probably not one of those guys is going to be depended on in 2023. I didn't know much about Brenton Strange, but I got to tell you, in talking to people that cover the Big Ten, talking to people that cover Penn State, looking at tape of him now, it does appear that it could be something with him that is a nice mesh there with Evan Ingram. Let me ask you this, though, all right? From the Jaguar point of view, let's begin with Anton Harrison. Your thoughts on Harrison, and can he come in from day one and be the opening day right tackle?
He was the most underrated offensive tackle in this class. He's 21 years old. He's a great athlete, good tape in the Big 12. He's still developing. He needs to add some more strength, but that's to be expected with a 21-year-old kid. So do I think he can start right away? Yes. But if you look at the first-round tackles from last year, the Giants with Evan Neal, Charles Cross, etc., these tackles really struggled their rookie year, and that's normal nowadays, right? The NFL is a different game. You're blocking different beasts off the edge every week. So could he struggle? Yes, but you got to deal with some growing pains if you ultimately want to fill that premium position. It's really expensive to do that in free agency.
My question about the Jaguar draft, I wasn't as critical as you are, but I did have some questions about particularly the edge rush position and the corner position. Now, look, there are veteran free agents that are still available. I'm quite frankly shocked the Jaguars haven't gone out and brought in an edge rusher, whether it's a Leonard Floyd, a Frank Clark, a Justin Houston. I'll be very surprised if one of those guys isn't a Jaguar in the next month or so. But for the here and now, they seem to think Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen and, other guys. I think the Ventrell Miller pick, Chad, might lead people to believe that Devin Lloyd might move around a little bit, maybe into an edge position on, say, third downs. I am surprised they did not address the defense earlier on, though.
Right, and corner was one you really thought they'd hit in one of the first 3 picks, and instead they're going with, a 4th string or 3rd string running back and a tight end that I frankly didn't love. There's still guys out there, and with the edge rushers, especially the older guys, they're going to sign later. I mean, I think, a guy like Leonard Floyd, does he really want to go to training camp? Unless you're going to give him $10 million a year, I think he'd rather sit on his couch, wait for an injury, and then take his, $4 to $5 or $6 million and try to have a rebound year. So a big question comes down to what they do with Kayvon Chaisson. Can they find a way to move that guaranteed money? It's going to be tough. It's really surprising. Their first round pick who's making around $2.5 million, and you can't really find anyone to take that off your hands. So I think you give him a look in training camp. I do think the book's a little bit written on him, but maybe he gets a chance to compete there. And then that's clearly what you said about Walker. The whole defense is going to come down to, can that guy take the next step and provide you really a kind of a dominant player opposite Josh Allen?
Chad Forbes at NFL Draft Bites on Twitter. Always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Chad, you look at the starting wide receivers on this Jaguar football team, Ridley and Kirk, and I'll get to the other guys in a moment. I don't know necessarily if they're among the top 10 or top 5 or anything like that, starting wide receivers in the league as a duo. But when you go 1 to 5, right, when you throw in ETN, you throw in Evan Ingram, you throw in Zay Jones, along with Calvin Ridley, along with Christian Kirk, I got to tell you, man, 1 to 5 skill position on offense, I'm not sure how many teams have 5 better options than the Jaguars do right now. What's your thought on that?
The wide receiver position is interesting because we get so enamored with fantasy football and statistics, and that's how we seem to value them. What I like about their 3 wide receivers is they all separate and get open. And what that does is it limits the turnovers, right? When you get these contested catch wide receivers that teams and people seem to love, that turns into interceptions because the ball is always contested. So I love that wide receiving core. If Calvin Ridley comes back and he's focused and effective with Christian Kirk, I mean, that duo is really underrated. And that's why I say you got to give them the benefit of the doubt in terms of Doug and the general manager, because last year so many people criticized what they did with Christian Kirk, and it turned out to be really, in the first year, a brilliant move. They locked in a guy for about $17 million a year, I believe, who's a 25-year-old wide receiver who looks like a number 1 guy. So give him the benefit of the doubt, and, you got to hope. That wide receiving core is pretty fun.
Trevor Lawrence working with Doug Peterson, you go back to Clemson. He had Dabo Swinney, then Urban Meyer, then Doug Peterson. I mean, the guy had 3 head coaches in 3 years. This is the first time in 4 years he's got the same coaching staff around him for 2 years of football. How much could that familiarity with Doug Peterson, with Press Taylor, with Mike McCoy, how much could that help Trevor grow here in 2023?
No coach in recent memory has shown us how important being the head coach is, and why even now these guys are starting to get paid $12, $15 million a year, why a really good coach is worth the money than Doug Peterson. I mean, he came in and changed really the organization, and it wasn't like they got off to this really hot start. I mean, the team really had to stay bought in. And what you saw last year was Trevor Lawrence is becoming one of those guys, right? And the AFC, we know who they are: Mahomes, Josh Allen, Burrow, and Herbert. And quietly right now, the people are starting to say that we should put, Trevor Lawrence in that discussion. So it's obviously a really exciting time, and you've got to give a lot of credit to Doug Peterson.
A couple of more for Chad Forbes at NFL Draft Bites on Twitter. Chad, interesting signing today. The Jaguars go out and get Brandon McManus, the longtime Denver Bronco kicker, and they waive Riley Patterson. Riley Patterson's a guy that was 30 of 35 last year, including hitting the game-tying field goal against Dallas, the game-winning field goal against the Chargers in overtime, or at the end of regulation, rather. Surprised me a little bit, but what's your thought on Brandon McManus now coming into Jacksonville?
I won't pretend to be an expert on kickers, okay? But there's a thing where every kicker around the league, if you tell me he's got to hit one from 50 yards, I've got a degree of confidence. And last year wasn't McManus' best year, right? But that's just a few kicks he missed. It's not really a whole – you're judging it off a small sample. He's definitely a better kicker than Riley Patterson, and he's got a huge leg. So I like the move. You're upgrading kicker. There's obviously some more work to do with, as you mentioned, the edge rush and corner. But, this is an exciting young team, and really has to be the favorite to win the AFC South.
Chad, let's quickly look around the AFC South. It is a lot different than the last time you and I talked. We'll begin in Houston. C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. It's a heck of a draft. Now, I don't know if they have enough to compete in 2023, but it does appear the arrow's pointing up. What is your thought on the Texans coming into this year?
Put in the dictionary short-sighted. What they did trading their first-round pick next year, which is going to turn into either like Drake May or Marvin Harrison Jr. for Will Anderson that was a criminally bad move by Nick Caserio. And everybody likes to, applaud it now. But what it really comes down to is the owner wanted a quarterback, and the head coach, D'Amico Ryans, wasn't bought into C.J. Stroud, and he ultimately wanted his Will Anderson from his alma mater. They're going to try to shape it as they'd like, say, oh, this is how it worked. But it was really the owner was demanding a quarterback, and the coach didn't want the kid.
Wow, that's a really interesting take. So it sounds to me like you're not necessarily high on C.J. Stroud.
He could be a good player, but they're asking him to be the guy, right? Where D'Amico Ryans got a 6-year contract, and what he wanted to do was build the roster the right way, get Will Anderson at 2, not trade up from 12, not trade Marvin Harrison Jr. to the next, for next year. And in a year, there's going to be 2 more quarterbacks in the draft. They come every year. When you take that quarterback second overall, your first year as a head coach, which is what Robert Saleh did in New York with the Jets, you start your clock, right? Now, D'Amico Ryans doesn't have maybe in Houston he will because the owner's fired so many coaches. But people are going to start calling for his head if he doesn't have C.J. Stroud looking like a Pro Bowl quarterback by 2025.
It wasn't only Houston. Indianapolis goes Anthony Richardson. They got a lot of talent on that roster, Chad, but it's interesting. The Jaguars play them twice in the first 6 weeks, including opening days. So we're taking particular interest to whether Richardson gets the keys to the kingdom early or if they go with Gardner Minshew for, say, the first month. How do you think that's going to play out there in Indianapolis?
It felt like a draft by a general manager that said, this might be my last one here. Okay, the tools they got on some of these guys, down to like the 7th round, the tackle they took for Northern Michigan, it was either these are kind of YOLO picks and I'm going to be gone in a year, or I really trust his staff to develop young talent. And you can't think the latter because it's his first few months with these guys. Does he really believe that they can turn these guys into superstars? But what I liked about the Richardson pick is there's a ton of ceiling, and he didn't have to give up picks to go get them. So Gardner Minshew, you guys probably have to see him in the first few weeks unless Richardson wins that job. I like what the Colts did, and it's a pretty exciting if you're an Indianapolis fan because you got a lot of talent on that roster now.
Final moments, Chad Forbes at NFL Draft Bites on Twitter. Chad, finally, Tennessee gets Will Levis along with the big tackle there from Northwestern in round 1. So my question is, Tannehill and Henry are still there, but other than that, it looks like a rebuild in every other sense of a football roster. What are they doing in Nashville right now, I guess is the best way to surmise it.
It feels like there's a divide between the new general manager and Mike Vrabel in terms of what's the vision for 2023. Vrabel is, if you know him, he's such a competitive guy that he's not going to be one to say, all right, let's take a step back for a year and come at this again in 2024. He thinks he can still win 9 or 10 games with that roster. So, Rand Carthon coming in there as new general manager trying to manage kind of the here and now, what Vrabel wants, with ultimately a long-term vision. The Levis pick was great value. Now, I didn't love Will Levis, and I was pretty vocal, outspoken that he was going to fall to the second round, which nobody ever gave me credit for being right on. But anyway, he gets a quarterback who's got some tools, right? And he's kind of a little bit of Tannehill. They've got some issues they've got to fix. But in the second round, that's great value, and I love Skoronski. But I just think overall, it's kind of a roster that's it doesn't really align with where they stand in the division or the conference currently.
Chad, 2 final questions. Number 1, if the Jaguars don't win the AFC South, something went horribly wrong, right? On paper, this looks like a no-brainer.
If they don't win the AFC South, it's because the Colts absolutely nailed the Anthony Richardson pick. Jonathan Taylor came back healthy, and Michael Pittman had a huge year, right? It means that the Colts just ran the ball down everyone's throat with, kind of a combination of Jonathan Taylor inside and Anthony Richardson running to the edge. So that's really the only threat I see to the Jaguars in the AFC South, that and an injury to a, really key player, and I don't want to mention his name, but we know who that is.
Hey, so you think Indianapolis is the biggest challenger, not Tennessee?
I do, because they've got the offensive line and they've got some talent on defense with DeForest Buckner. They can kind of get after the quarterback. They've got some continuity with Gus Bradley coming back on defense. They were horrible last year. They should only get better on that side of the ball. And they drafted so many guys with huge upside that, if they nail a few of them, the team could look a lot differently.
All right, Chad, leave us with this. AFC as a whole. I don't think the Jaguars are the best team in the AFC, not even probably among the best 2 or 3, but I do think the schedule is very favorable for them. The other divisions, Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, the schedules they have, they're going to lose games by attrition. I mean, there are gauntlets in there. Meanwhile, Jacksonville has 9 games against C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, or Gardner Minshew, Ryan Tannehill, Bryce Young, Baker Mayfield, and Desmond Ridder. So the schedule alone, how high could the Jaguars get when it comes to seeding if they do end up winning this division?
Don't see them being the number 1 seed, but you could see a number 2 seed or a number 3. It doesn't seem like their schedule's that difficult, but, we say that every year, and then some teams surprise us. So, but the way you phrase, the Panthers could be a good team, but, do I see the Falcons with Desmond Ridder, being a threat to the Jaguars? No, in that game. And they should win in their division at least 4 games, and I'd kind of be surprised if they didn't go 5-1 in the AFC South.
Yeah, I think a 4-2 run in the South would be a disappointment right now. Jacksonville, look, you play Anthony Richardson or Gardner Minshew week 1. If the Jaguars are who we believe they are, you got to go to Indy and win that game. I don't care if it's on the road or not.
That shapes the whole position they have in the AFC conference as a whole is you've got to hope that I was wrong and that they should have taken Walker over Aiden Hutchinson, because the year 1 results, you tried to sell me on pressures and all of that. Aiden Hutchinson was a much better player in 2022, and that needs to change if that Jaguars defense is going to take the next step, and they're going to be really a threat to take down, a Cincinnati or Kansas City in a meaningful playoff game come January.
No, that's fair. I can't argue with that. Quickly, we brought it up earlier. Can Devin Lloyd play on the outside? Can he be an edge guy, maybe on third down situations?
That's a really interesting concept, and especially if you move Trayvon Walker inside. That piques my interest, and that starts to talk me off the ledge of saying, they've got too many linebackers.
Chad Forbes at NFL Draft Bites. He's certainly one of our guys here on 1010XL. Chad, we'll do it again around training camp, brother. Know you're busy. Thank you as always. We'll talk soon.
I'm going to give you one before I go. Duval.
Thanks, buddy.
Take care.
Brunell.
Hi, I'm Mark Brunell.
On the fade. Touchdown to Jimmy Smith.
You have found the best Jaguars coverage in Jacksonville on 1010XL 92.5 FM.
We've been telling you for almost a year about Nathan's Family Chiropractic and the 100-Year Lifestyle Network. If chronic back or joint pain is keeping you down, don't listen to me. Listen to what Jacksonville is saying about Dr. Alan Nathans.
The stem cell treatment took the pain away.
Changed my life. It's awesome.
Your body just works better when it's aligned. We're believers.
His no-needle regenerative protocols are giving people their lives back. Get yours back, too. Go to the pro in the know. Don't do another cortisone injection. He's one of us helping all of us for the past 25 years. For more info, drnathans.com.
Children under 5 die from drowning in Florida more than any other state. Together, we can reduce the risk of drowning. The YMCA has programs accessible to families that teach essential water safety skills. Face the water with confidence. Learn more at watersafetyflorida.org.
Skilled trade jobs are booming, so begin your high-pay, high-demand career today through the Northeast Florida Builders Association. Their apprenticeship program provides paid training in some of the most highly sought-after skilled trades. Get paid while you train full-time in carpentry, electrical, sheet metal, HVAC, or plumbing. Plus, earn a 10% raise every year, and the classes are 100% tuition-free. Start your new career today and apply before June 12th at nefbaapprenticeship.org.
The flagship station of the Jacksonville Jaguars. WJXL AM Jacksonville Beach. WJXL FM Jacksonville Beach.
What if you could be credit card debt-free in 10 days and save as much as $1,000 a month? Loan Pronto's all-new Express Equity Line of Credit program is just what you need. Hey, it's Prosser here. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a small portion of the equity you have and enjoy a super low monthly payment. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days, and a $50,000 loan will only cost you around $400 a month. Use that money and pay off high-interest credit cards or do a home improvement project. You can access up to 90% of your home's equity, and 9 out of 10 homeowners won't even need an appraisal. So even if you did a total refi recently or just bought your home, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program. Stop the madness. Say no to 24% interest fees. Call Loan Pronto today. 904-999-1508. That's 904-999-1508. Or as always, you can visit loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
Summer is here, so while you're at the beach or on your bike, head on down to Sliders Oyster Bar in Neptune Beach, where you'll find the absolute freshest seafood in all of the 904. The biggest shrimp, the saltiest oysters, the freshest fish, all here at our newly renovated restaurant in Neptune Beach. Fresh seafood delivered daily by Safe Harbor, straight from the boat to your plate. Unique oyster specials daily, along with mixed cocktails from the bar. Come enjoy this beach vibe. Sliders Oyster Bar in Neptune Beach, locally owned by Safe Harbor Seafood.
Working in the trades industry, going nowhere, sick of dealing with grueling residential install projects and demanding seasonal schedules? Become part of something better. All Weather Contractors wants you to join our multifamily and commercial construction property maintenance team now. Based in Jacksonville, we offer premium pay, bonuses, full benefits, 401k programs, employee stock ownership opportunities, and a culture focused on career advancements and opportunities. Build a better career in the commercial property maintenance industry. Apply online today at allweathercontractors.com.
Jumbo Shrimp Baseball, presented by FIS, is home all weekend at 1-to-1 Financial Ballpark. Tonight is a Military Appreciation Night presented by Outfront and Ascension St. Vincent's on Coors Light Thirsty Thursday. The Weekend of Boom starts Friday with fireworks presented by Florida Health, Duval County. More fireworks Sunday. JackShrimp.com for tickets. Jumbo Shrimp Baseball, affordable, family, fun.
Hacker here for the Sausage Dudes. Look, you know I'm a sausage guy. And the Sausage Dudes, Paul and Patrick, make the best sausage I've ever tasted. Their high-quality pork and spices separate the Sausage Dudes from the pack. Try their 4 flavors, including Italian, Polish, Hungarian, and beer bratwurst today by picking them up at any Publix location in the Jacksonville area. A portion of their proceeds also get donated to the Boys and Girls Club of Northeast Florida. It's Memorial Day weekend. Head to Publix today and pick up the Sausage Dudes sausage.
Beach Bar Rum, Santo, and Sammy's Beach Bar Cocktails present Crazy Times. Sammy Hagar and the Circle, live October 26th, the St. Augustine Amphitheater. Sammy brings the party with George Thorogood and the Destroyers, with special guest Damon Fowler. Tickets on sale now at theamp.com. Crazy times are coming.
Business owners know Andy's Automotive and Truck Services for routine fleet maintenance or emergency repairs. Andy's offers after-hours and mobile service to minimize downtime and keep your fleet on the road. Visit andysats.com.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, the official personal injury law firm of the Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
1 hour down, 1 hour to go with you till 10 o'clock tonight, as we are every night. 1010XL, 92.5 FM here on Hacker After Dark. Boy, I'll tell you, the Miami Heat are flirting with disaster. It was 3-0. The Boston Celtics were done. They were absolutely done. Miami kind of let them off the mat in Game 4, right? Boston wins in Miami. It's 3-1. Now you go back to Boston. They're only one quarter into Game 5, but it is all Celtics. 35-20, a 15-point Celtic lead after one in Game 5. A Boston win tonight would force it back to Miami for Game 6. And at that point, boy, all the pressure would be on Miami, right? There's no way you want to have to go back to the TD Garden for Game 7. As we know, no NBA team has ever come back from an 0-3 deficit, so we'll see what happens. But Miami is cooking, Boston is cooking early here in Game 5, up 15, trying to extend this Eastern Conference Finals to a Game 6. Whoever wins will face the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals. They get underway 1 week from tonight. Game 1 out in Denver, I believe. Yeah, Denver had the best record in the NBA. So Game 1 would be in Denver coming up 1 week from tonight. Irish Chauffeur, warchant.com over in Tallahassee. He's coming up in less than 10 minutes. Fallout from the Florida State ACC squabble that's gone public over the last couple of months. Remember, Florida State last week was part of the Magnificent Seven, as they were called. 7 teams that are not happy with the Atlantic Coast Conference, the revenue being brought in, the fact that the SEC and Big Ten schools are getting so much more money annually than the ACC schools. What, if anything, can be done about that? Is there a way to get out of that ACC contract? You know, they're saying everything right publicly now, but I still think there are some major issues with Florida State and the ACC, and we're going to talk to Ira Schofel of WarChant.com about that coming up here in less than 10 minutes, and also our AFC East preview continues at the bottom of the 9 o'clock hour as we head to Foxborough. The Patriots, Jacksonville's own Mac Jones, still the starting quarterback. Zach Cox of Nesson and the Nesson Patriots podcast will join us to look at Bill Belichick and New England as our AFC East preview continues throughout the week. Back into the world of college football for a moment. Before we go to Ira Schofel over in Tallahassee, I saw a list pop up earlier today, and it verified what we kind of know, right? But it's still frustrating, I guess, from a Florida perspective. CBS Sports did a huge write-up on the 5 teams whose rosters have been transferred or have been transformed most by the transfer portal. The transfer portal has done wonders to these 5 rosters. And what do all these have in common? Denmark, you're a smart college football guy. Let me give you these 5 schools. Colorado, of course with Deion, Auburn, Florida State, LSU, and Southern Cal. What do those 5, particularly 4 of those 5, but I'll even say all 5.
They have a newer coach?
Exactly. Yes, they do. You nailed it. USC, Lincoln Riley going into year 2. You got LSU, Brian Kelly going into year 2. Mike Norvell, the elder statesman, going into year 4. Of course, you got Auburn, Hugh Freeze going into year 1. Colorado, Deion Sanders going into year 1. Why have these new head coaches done so unbelievably well in the transfer portal, and Billy Napier going into year 2 at Florida seemingly has not? And for whatever it's worth, Mario Cristobal going into year 2 in Miami seemingly has not. Now look, I don't think the transfer portal, I don't think you can live in the transfer portal, although Florida State might be proving me wrong there. Mike Norvell is the king of the transfer portal. But I don't know if that's the best way to sustain a program year in and year out. But there is no question. No question. You look at what it's done to LSU with Jaden Daniels, among others. You look at what it's done to Florida State with Johnny Wilson and Jared Verse. Last week, Keon Coleman, among others. You look at what Lincoln Riley has done with Southern Cal in the transfer portal. Auburn with Hugh Freeze, and of course Deion out of Colorado. And Florida, and to a lesser extent Miami. I think Miami's done better than Florida. Still hasn't done great. Just not a lot of success. Not the success you would expect from programs like Florida and even like Miami in the portal. And it's just curious why some coaches seem to live there. Mike Norvell, Lane Kiffin, Lincoln Riley, Brian Kelly. And why some coaches on paper appear to be struggling there, like, say, a Billy Napier. Hopefully that changes for the Gators' sake because, again, there's a lot of talent in the portal, but a lot of that talent does not seem to be making its way to Gainesville. A lot of it actually seems to be going to Tallahassee, which is where we're going to go next. Ira Schofel, WarChant.com. What about Florida State standing with the Atlantic Coast Conference? We'll talk a little Keon Coleman, the transfer from Michigan State as well. He's coming up next. Hacker After Dark on a Thursday night in Jacksonville, Florida with Dylan Denmark. The Hacker Ryan Green with you here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM.
The great thing about live sports, you never know what's going to happen.
Oh, how did he pull that off?
Get the most live play-by-play on 1010XL.
Baloo here for Smunez Vision. Why Smunez Vision? Well, I've been with Dr. Neil Smunez now since I got back to Jacksonville in 2006. 37 years of experience he has. Smunez Vision is a family organization that focuses on personal high-quality medical and surgical eye care. Dr. Catherine Smunez is fellowship-trained in cornea and cataract surgery and all refractive surgery. Combined, that's 30 years plus in laser eye surgery. Visit SmunezVision.com today. Care you can see.
If you have a family member who is on active duty or a veteran, now is the time to call Zero Res and get a 25% military discount. That's 25% off carpet cleaning, tile, upholstery, or Oriental rugs. Zero Res, spelled forward or backwards, it's the right way to clean.
Brian and Angela Wall here with Window World. You've heard us talk about it. Window World, the #1 window replacement company in the USA, selling over 1 million windows each year for the past 8 years.
That's a lot of satisfied customers and why J.D. Powers has awarded Window World Best in Customer Satisfaction 3 out of 4 years.
Window World stands behind their slogan, simply the best for less. With Window World, you get top quality windows at a price that leaves more of your money in your bank account, and you get the absolute best guarantee there is in the window replacement industry. When compared to our competition, there is none. See for yourself. Call the competition. Get quotes from them. But before you buy, get Window World's free estimate and compare the quality of the windows and the price.
You'll see.
And when your new Window World windows are installed and they're saving you money on your energy bills, if anything goes wrong with those windows, Window World and I will be there to make it right. That's my guarantee.
Call Window World today. Start saving money on your new windows and your energy bills and take vacation with your savings. Window World, online at windowworldneflorida.com.
Window World, simply the best for less. Thank you for your business.
Window World also offers energy-efficient doors and siding.
E.T. here, and y'all know how much I like my brown water, but I ain't gonna lie, it gives me headaches sometimes. So my alternative is Brackish Vodka. This gluten-free alternative to Tito's is 100% local, and all monies stays right here in Duval. Not only does Brackish Vodka make you feel good, but when you support Brackish Vodka, you're also helping local charities. Try it side by side with your favorite vodka, and you will taste and smell how natural Brackish Vodka really is. And when you do, remember who sent you. Come on, somebody.
This Date in Sports History is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists.
On May 25th, 1935, Jesse Owens equals or breaks 4 world records in 45 minutes at a Big Ten meet, remembered as the greatest 45 minutes ever in sport.
The IRS has just received $80 billion in funding to hire additional agents for aggressive collections enforcement. If you owe the IRS, now is the time to take action before the IRS comes after you or your business. There's no time to waste. Call J. David Tax Law, a firm right here in Jacksonville, for a no-cost consultation at 904-507-4777. That's 904-507-4777. Or visit jdavidtaxlaw.com. Peace of mind is only a click or phone call away.
I'm Dr. Mitchell Yass, the most unknown world-renowned expert on pain elimination. That's right, elimination. If you've tried medications, injections, physical therapy, chiropractic, even surgery, and still experience pain, then say yes to Yass. I have successfully used the Yass method for over 30 years to help thousands reclaim their lives. To learn more, call me at 904-906-YASS. Let's end your pain and say yes to Yass.
Does your home or building need painting? For over 20 years, Performance Painting has had the privilege of preserving many of Jacksonville's most prominent buildings. That said, we feel like we're just getting started. I'm Jason Parker, and our team thrives on preparing, protecting, and preserving the homes, businesses, and public buildings that make up our local landscape. Contact us today to put our years of experience to work for you. Performance Painting. Prepare, protect, preserve.
Performance Painting.
Live life to the fullest. You hear that all the time, but it's easier said than done when you're in pain, right? It's Hayes Carlyon with QC Kinetics. They are in the business of giving people back their quality of life and providing much needed relief for chronic joint pain, but doing it in the most non-invasive way possible, using regenerative treatments from your body's own natural biologics. Where is your joint pain? In your knees, hips, shoulders, or back? Well, QC Kinetics concentrates these impactful treatments right at the source of your pain, directly applying healing properties where you need them most. And best of all, you walk into the office and you walk right out after treatment. No surgery, no downtime. And patients are raving about the results. So what does living life to the fullest look like to you? Whatever it is, don't wait one more day. Get started today with a call to QC Kinetics for a complimentary consultation. Call them at 904-274-5522. That's 904-274-5522 with locations in Mandarin and Ponte Vedra.
Flickering lights and hot switches can be annoying. They can also signal a major problem or electrical emergency. So leave it to the pros and Mr. Sparky.
8Sparky.
Your on-time electrician, Mr. Sparky of the First Coast.
1010XL is presented by Farah & Farah, the official personal injury law firm of the Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville.
Back here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville. We are glad you are with us. A lot going on over in Tallahassee. Some preseason magazines coming out. Florida State's about where you would expect. A very hot team coming in to the football season, but some off-the-field news in the last couple of weeks revolving around Florida State, some other programs, and the Atlantic Coast Conference. Let's talk about all of it with Ira Schofel, warchant.com. He's always kind enough to join us on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Ira, how you doing, man?
I'm great, Ryan. How are you?
Ira, we're good. Thank you for the time. All right, last week, Amelia Island, the ACC meetings, boy, the Magnificent Seven made a lot of news. About half the conference seemingly pretty unhappy, Ira, with the revenue, the contract, everything going on off the playing field. What was your fallout from that? What has been the response, and kind of where do things stand now between Florida State and the ACC?
You know, it's been brewing for a while. Florida State's athletic director, Michael Alford, made his comments back in February where he came out and said that, quote, something has to change. That was the big quote, that, if the ACC schools with their contract with ESPN are only going to get $35 to $40 million a year, while schools in the SEC and the Big Ten are getting 70-something to $80 million a year, that it's going to be too big of a deficit, that the revenue gap's going to be too big, and that these schools in the ACC won't be able to compete if they want to play for national championships. If they just want to be average, college athletic programs, then maybe it's okay. But if you want to compete to get in the college football playoff and be a top team in the major sports, you need more revenue. And so that's been brewing. And as what came out in the ACC meetings was that several of these schools have been talking amongst themselves and trying to figure out if there's any way out, or what can they do to get more money. And nothing's really happened since then. I mean, it was kind of a bombshell, the fact that it was acknowledged that these schools were doing it and that these conversations were happening, but nothing actually has happened. And, while we were there at these spring meetings, the commissioner, Jim Phillips, and some of the ADs try to kind of put a happy face on it and say, we're still all unified and we're all still trying to work together. But the reality is Florida State, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, probably a couple other schools are very concerned about their future in the ACC. And the question is, what can they do about it? And, they all have legal teams working on it, trying to figure out if they can get out of the contract, get out of the long-term grant of rights. As of now, we don't have anything definitive, but if they can figure out a way to get out of that contract, I think they're going to try to do it.
Ira, I had a couple of Florida State fans talk to me over the weekend, and a lot of people, and you know this, when you talk about contracts and revenue and decimal points, they kind of zone out. Basically, they want to know the elementary, what is going on? Why is Florida State unhappy? So let me summarize it. Tell me how accurate I am. Florida's in the SEC, Florida State's in the ACC. Florida is getting basically $30 million more a year from their conference than Florida State is from their conference, which goes into coaching salaries, recruiting budgets, facility upgrades, NIL, all of that. And it's just not feasible for Florida State to be able to compete with that, losing out on $30 to $40 million a year. Is that basically the nuts and bolts of this?
100%. And, if Florida was in, if Florida was in the Big 12 and the revenue was about the same, I do think that's the big challenge for Florida State is they're not going to sit by and let their biggest rival, who they have to compete with in every sport, just be cashing these huge checks every year while they're not. And so, that's what's driving it. And I think from Florida State's perspective, I think they're going to do anything they can to make that happen, to find a way into the Big Ten or the SEC. And, everybody has their own opinions on whether or not this contract is airtight. People have their own opinions about whether or not the SEC wants Florida State or not, or whether or not Florida State would want to be in the Big Ten or not. But the one thing I know for sure is the situation that exists right now with Florida State making that much less for the next 13 years is not something that I think Florida State can live with.
Ira Schofel, warchant.com. All right, let's back up for a second. What you just said is very interesting. You know this. I'm not tooting your horn here, but you're one of the guys in Tallahassee, right? That's why we love having you on. You've covered that school for a long time. So it is your opinion, and I think your opinion is certainly one people listen to, that Florida State is still actively looking to try to get out of the ACC and potentially go to greener pastures?
I don't think they have any other options. You know, it would be one thing if the ACC or ESPN could figure out a way to make it better. And I think from Florida State's perspective, it might be better if that could happen. If ESPN would come back and say, you know what, we undervalued the contract, or we feel like Florida State and Clemson are so valuable to the ACC and we want to see the ACC survive. So maybe we'll come up with an extra bonus for Florida State and Clemson and maybe some of these other schools. Or, as Florida State's been asking for, redistribute the television contracts. And so have it be based on television ratings, and the schools that bring in the most television ratings should get a higher percentage of the revenue. And then maybe that would work and keep Florida State in the ACC. But if there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of movement in either of those areas, and if there's not, again, I just don't think Florida State has any other option but to figure out when they can get out, and assuming that they can get into one of those two much more profitable conferences.
Well, the crazy thing is the 2036 contract, right? I mean, whose idea was that to sign something watertight for decades on down the line? That looks horrible right now in retrospect.
Yeah, they felt like they had no option. At the time, you know, the ESPN did not want to do an ACC network. And the ACC schools felt like that was something they had to have to remain competitive, because the SEC was making money with their network, the Big Ten was making money with their network, and the ACC schools were like, look, ESPN, we need a network. We want to make that money also. We want to try to catch up. So ESPN said, well, we'll do it only if you guys will sign this 20-year grant of rights, assuring us that you're going to stick together, because if we're going to invest this money in this television network and fight to get you on all these cable providers, so where it is profitable for you, that you're not going to just turn around and break up. Well, they all signed it because they were desperate for that money. But what they didn't realize was within a few years, the SEC is going to go get Texas and Oklahoma. They're going to renegotiate their Saturday afternoon package that CBS was paying a certain amount for and get way more from ESPN. That the Big Ten was going to go out and get Southern Cal and UCLA, and they were going to renegotiate their contracts. And so they just were short-sighted. They didn't realize how big the gap was going to get, and now they're stuck in it. But again, I think that they're not sending all these attorneys to the ACC headquarters just for fun. They are working to see if they can get out of it.
Ira Schoffel, warchant.com. All right, you've really piqued my interest here. So we've heard that it's watertight. We've heard that to get out of this thing, these schools are going to have to pay hundreds of millions of dollars, which obviously is not feasible. Based on your conversations, people you've talked to, is there a belief in Tallahassee that they could get out of this thing without having to pay that hefty of a price?
Well, there's two separate things. The one is there is an exit fee. If a school just decides to leave, they have to pay an exit fee, and that's about $120 million. In Florida State, I think if they had to do that, and that would get them out clear and free, if they had to do it, I think they would do it. Because, again, you'd make up that money in just a few years if you went to one of these other conferences. The other issue is that grant of rights. And there's been numbers thrown out there, like you said, hundreds of millions of dollars and all these different things about how the grant of rights, because you're granting your television rights to your home football games until 2036, how that would play out. Again, I think there's questions. Several athletic directors in the conference now are wondering whether or not how enforceable that is. And if you listen to some of the narrative, for years it was discussed that it was airtight, as you said, that there's no way out of the grant of rights. That's not really what you hear anymore. What you hear now is there might be a way out of it, but it might be a legal battle. It might be costly. It might be risky. Well, again, I just think, if I'm in Florida State shoes, it's a lot riskier to stay here in the ACC and wait it out till 2036, knowing you're going to be $30 to $40 million behind every single year, your biggest rival. That's riskier than trying to see if they can get out of this grant of rights. So it's not determined yet exactly what the cost would be. And the other scenario is if you could get 8 schools, a majority of the schools in the conference, to decide to vote to dissolve the conference, that may make the whole thing a moot point. So there's a lot of cards, I think, still have to be played.
Is there anything the ACC can do at this point to make Florida State, Clemson, Miami, these other schools happy, make them want to stay, help with the revenue? Is the ACC's hands tied by this with ESPN? I mean, can the Atlantic Coast Conference do anything at this point?
Yeah, I think the only two options really, and I don't know if either one is feasible at all, is one is convince ESPN that they've got to start giving these schools more money because it's the only way to keep the conference together. And one of the things Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the conference, and John Swafford before him would say is that ESPN is a 50-50 partner in the ACC network. It's in their vested interest to see the league survive. Well, okay, then do something to make it happen. You know, you're in this contract with the SEC. You know what you're paying them. You need to start paying at least some of these schools closer to that if you want them to compete at the highest level. The only other possibility is to get the conference schools to all agree to redistribute the television revenue. But I just don't see any scenario where Wake Forest or Pitt or Duke or Boston College or some of these schools are going to agree to start taking half the money they've been taking in years past to keep these bigger schools happy. So I don't think there's a feasible solution for the ACC, but they're definitely working on it. They're trying to figure out if there's a way they can keep it together.
Well, that was my biggest question last week, right? The Magnificent Seven, half the conference, obviously upset. Well, you mentioned the other half, the Boston Colleges, Wake Forest of the world. Their feathers have to be really ruffled because the other 7 teams are trying to hang them out to dry at this point, right?
They are. I mean, it was a pretty I think heated meeting when they got to the conference and the news came out about those private meetings that were happening before they met in Amelia Island. So yeah, there's a lot of frustrations on both sides of it. And I get to some degree, you know, one of the complaints that you'll hear from Wake Forest's coaches and athletic director and some of these other schools is, hey, it's not like Florida State's been great these last few years. You know, why do you guys get more money? Well, again, the talking point from Florida State, and I think it's a good one, is if you look at the television ratings, if you look at who ESPN tries to schedule in the high-profile games, look, there's a reason Florida State LSU is that season opening big game blockbuster on ABC in prime time. It's because Florida State's brand. Not, you know, yeah, they went 10-3 last season, but if they had been 8-4, they probably would get on it before an 11-1 Wake Forest or Pitt or Boston College or Syracuse. So it's a bigger brand and they want to be paid that way.
Final moments here with Ira Schofel of warchant.com. Amazingly, as we shift gears dramatically to on-the-field activities, despite the difference in revenue, Florida State right now is the king of the state of Florida after running roughshod last year over Miami and the Florida Gators. And boy, Ira, it looks like Florida State getting a lot of preseason love when these magazines start coming out. They added another unbelievable transfer out of the portal there with Keon Coleman, the wide receiver from Michigan State. Last week on my show, I just said all hail Mike Norvell because the guy is the absolute king of the transfer portal. Every year, he absolutely runs that thing.
Yeah, it was funny. That was, you know, one of the, you know, I guess fun topics there with Keon Coleman was, you know, he was also considering Ole Miss, and Lane Kiffin has kind of self-anointed himself the portal king, and Mike Norvell was able to beat him out head to head for Keon Coleman. It's a big get. It's hard to even explain how big of it is. You know, they lost Micah Pittman, who was a nice slot receiver who he went into the portal kind of unexpectedly at the end of the spring, and I don't know if he hadn't gone into the portal and ended up transferring to Utah, I don't know if Florida State would have been in the running for another transfer wide receiver, but it worked out perfectly. He's 6'4", big, long target, really will be a perfect complement to Johnny Wilson at the other receiver spot. And then you start looking at this offense, the offensive line, they brought in 3 transfers there. They also have 4 returning starters on the offensive line. At wide receiver now, you've got Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman and several other guys who have played on the college level and had success. Then you look at, you know, what they did at tight end. They brought in Jaheim Bell from South Carolina as kind of a Swiss Army knife. They have a lot of really impressive weapons on that offense. It's going to be fun to see what Jordan Travis can do with. We saw what he did last year, but now with an even better cast of characters around him.
Ira, as we wrap up, I mean, is this ACC championship game or disappointment this year for Florida State? Is that the way they're looking at this?
I think without question. I mean, you know, it's not just the fact that this team, you know, should be the best team they've had in a long time, but it's also, you know, Clemson should be a little bit down. Clemson has not had a lot of success in the transfer portal. Their roster is not quite what it was before. They'll have a kind of a new starting quarterback in Cade Klubnik, who's a talented player, came in with a lot of hype, but this will be his first year as a starting quarterback. The only thing that gives, I think, FSU fans pause is the fact that when they play Clemson this year, it will be at Clemson. And even when Florida State's on top of the world, that's always been a really tough place to play. So that's going to be a challenge. The good thing is, because there's no divisions, Florida State could end up seeing Clemson back in the championship game of the conference at the end of the season, because they wouldn't have to just fight to be number one in the Atlantic Division. They could, as long as they're one of the top two teams, they'll get in. So I think everything's right there for Florida State, and barring injuries or anything unforeseen, yeah, if they don't get to the AC championship game and maybe win it, I think people will feel like this year wasn't what it could have been.
Ira, 90 seconds to go. Final question. Away from football for a moment. Boy, men's basketball struggled in a big way, and baseball, my goodness. Now, I know it was thought to be a rebuild coming in for the new manager there, Link Jarrett, but I don't think anybody thought it was going to be this in 2023. Those animals love their baseball, right, at Dick Howser Stadium. They can't be happy about what happened this year. I mean, what's the thought about the baseball program moving forward?
No, definitely disappointing, but I don't think anybody's holding it against Link Jarrett. They know he came into a really tough situation, but they lost their best pitchers from the year before, didn't have a ton of talent on the roster. And then once they started losing games, I think guys lost their confidence, and they just went into a tailspin. Late in the year, they kind of found it. They won 4 of the last 5 games, had a nice series win at Louisville, had a surprising win against Wake Forest, who's number 1 team in the country. And so I think there's some feeling like, okay, if Link Jarrett can get his players in here, he's had success everywhere he's been. He took Notre Dame to the College World Series. So there's excitement still that he can turn it around. The best thing that happened to Link Jarrett, though, and the best thing that happened to Leonard Hamilton, is that they had these terrible seasons on the heels of football really kind of coming back. And I think what we see right now is, as long as football's winning and you win 10 games and there's excitement around football, people can kind of look past everything else. So they've had some nice cover by the football team success.
Ira Schoffel, warchant.com. Ira, great stuff, man. Really appreciate the time. Know you're very busy. Thank you as always. We'll do it again soon.
Anytime, Ryan. Take care.
My plan is to adopt a new style, a combination that requires the highest level of conditioning, speed, creativity, most of all,
1010XL.
This month only, at Key Buick GMC, receive employee pricing for everyone on all 2022 and 2023 Buicks in stock and on the lot. Combine big savings with a low APR to fit any budget. We are the only Buick GMC dealership offering a lifetime powertrain warranty on every new Buick. Remember, we're the home of the no dealer markups, and remember as well to get your Buick ready for summer travel at our service headquarters. Fast and convenient. Key Buick GMC on the corner of Southside and Gate.
It's time to play Fix That Plumbing Problem. What do you do when your water heater stops working? Contestant 1?
Heat water on the stove?
Come on, really?
Or maybe in the microwave?
Contestant 2? That's right. Just call the Duck.
For new water heater installations or repairs, just call the pros at Duck Duck Rooter. Commercial, residential, any plumbing issue.
When you're stuck, call the Duck. 904-862-6769.
What if you could be credit card debt-free in 10 days and save as much as $1,000 a month? Loan Pronto's all-new Express Equity Line of Credit program is just what you need. Hey, it's Prosser here. You don't have to do a full home refi. You can tap a small portion of the equity you have and enjoy a super low monthly payment. With Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line, you can close in 7 to 10 days, and a $50,000 loan will only cost you around $400 a month. Use that money and pay off high-interest credit cards or do a home improvement project. You can access up to 90% of your home's equity, and 9 out of 10 homeowners won't even need an appraisal. So even if you did a total refi recently or just bought your home, you can tap the equity with this fast, easy program. Stop the madness. Say no to 24% interest fees. Call Loan Pronto today. 904-999-1508. That's 904-999-1508. Or as always, you can visit loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
Summer is here, so while you're at the beach or on your bike, head on down to Sliders Oyster Bar in Neptune Beach, where you'll find the absolute freshest seafood in all of the 904. The biggest shrimp, the saltiest oysters, the freshest fish, all here at our newly renovated restaurant in Neptune Beach. Fresh seafood delivered daily by Safe Harbor, straight from the boat to your plate. Unique oyster specials daily, along with mixed cocktails from the bar. Come enjoy this beach vibe. Sliders Oyster Bar in Neptune Beach, locally owned by Safe Harbor Seafood.
I'm Taylor Dahl on your Gator Station. 1010XL is your pipeline to Gator Nation. Listen for the Gator Report all year round.
Brought to you by Darley's Plumbing, where quality counts. On the home of the Florida Gators, 1010XL.
Go, Gators!
This is Keith Catlin for Catlin Truck Accessories, and we are so blessed to be in business for over 100 years. Over 100 years of the best product and customer service means you can count on Catlin. From Roll and Lock bed covers to Lear toppers to Cam Locker toolboxes, Catlin Truck Accessories has you covered when it comes to your truck or van. We do those too. Got a fleet of vehicles? We can outfit them all.
Who can you count on? Count on Catlin.
One name, one location, 100 years. You can count on Catlin.
Clearwater. John, I can't even mow my side yard. It's so soggy. Man, my builder sucks.
Brent, calm down. This is a common problem in neighborhoods where houses are built too close together. You need gutters and a properly installed French drain that will soak up subsurface water. We can completely dry it up.
So I can take my builder off my speed dial now, huh?
Yeah, we got you, buddy. Let that builder bitterness go.
Clearwater irrigation and drainage too.
It's a unique gift idea and a popular way to add fun and personality to any wedding environment. Mystic Cornhole Company builds custom, high-quality boards right here in Jax. Visit the shop on Phillips Highway or check out their designs at mysticcornhole.com.
For lost or broken keys or nearly any make and model of vehicle, call 722-1111 for
Instant Keys. Instant Keys. You don't have to go to the dealer. Instant Keys comes to you.
Mark Watson with Hardball Creative. For the new year, check out the new gear at hardballcreative.com and make sure your employees are sporting your logo on the newest and coolest apparel.
Hardball Creative. Hardball does it all.
The best golfing weather is upon us, and Hidden Hills Golf Club invites you to enjoy your round of golf with us. Our warm and welcoming atmosphere and spectacular golf course keeps our customers coming back. Check us out at hiddenhillsgc.com. You'll be glad you did.
If your ride is making strange noises, don't wait and make it worse. Come to Action Transmission on Merrill Road. My expert technicians can diagnose the problem and likely fix it fast. Experience the difference at Action Transmission on Merrill Road.
Yo, yo, yo! Are you looking for the lowest price on car insurance? ET here for Australia Car Insurance. Call 1-800-CAR Insurance today. Australia is your quick and easy alternative to pay less for car insurance. Switch and save money. Call 1-800-CAR Insurance today.
1010XL is presented by Farah and Farah, the official personal injury law firm of the Jaguars. Protecting you and your family. Call 396-5555. Jacksonville. It's Hacker After Dark on 1010XL.
Back here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM in the city of Jacksonville. We are glad you are with us. Our AFC East preview week continues. We've already been to Buffalo. We've already been to New York. Now let's head to Foxborough. The Patriots very quietly added a couple of nice pieces this offseason. Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Gesicki, Mac Jones, Jacksonville's own, is still the starting quarterback up there. And, of course, Bill Belichick looking to turn things around for the New England Patriots. Zach Cox of Nesson and the Nesson Patriots podcast is our guy up in New England, and he's always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Zach, how you doing?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Zach, appreciate the time as always. All right, so I guess the thought early on to me is that everybody's talking about Buffalo and Miami and New York, and boy, the Patriots seem to be the forgotten team. Yet, Zach, tell me if I'm wrong. I think they did some nice things this offseason. What was your thought on some of their moves?
Yeah, I agree with that, and it's really kind of an unfamiliar position for the Patriots. You're used to for so long, for 15, 20 years there, it was the Patriots, then about 20 miles, and then everybody else in this AFC East. And as you're looking at it right now, going into the season, I think everybody kind of views them as team number 4 in a 4-team division, which is a very unfamiliar position for them. To be sure, I do like a lot of the things they did this offseason, especially offensively. The Patriots' offense was just a complete and total mess last season. It was disjointed from really the start of training camp all the way through the end of the regular season. Mac Jones regressed. Basically, everybody in that Patriots offense outside of Ramondre Stevenson regressed. And I think they really made it a priority to right some of those wrongs this offseason. You mentioned some of the players that came aboard, but the single biggest change on this entire team is the fact that Bill O'Brien is now running the Patriots offense. Last year, Bill Belichick tried to do that with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, neither of whom really had any experience as offensive coaches. And it was a disaster. Again, the Patriots offense was just completely out of sorts the entire season. Now you turn it over to a guy in O'Brien who caught a lot of flack for his work as the GM in Houston a couple of years ago, but this is a guy who knows offense. He knows how to call plays. He knows how to coach quarterbacks. He has a long track record of success as an offensive coach, both in New England and down in Houston and even at Alabama the last couple of years. So I think simply adding him is really going to change a lot for this Patriots offense. Then you add in a couple of those personnel changes, and I think you'll see a much more respectable showing from this Patriots offense this year. Big question is, though, with how good the rest of the AFC East might be, is it going to be enough for them?
Zach Cox of Nesson here with us on 1010XL in Jacksonville as our AFC East preview continues tonight with the New England Patriots. Zach, Mac Jones is a guy that played high school football 10 minutes away from where I'm talking to you right now at the Bolles School, so we've certainly kept a close eye on him. Interesting offseason, depending on what reports you want to believe. Were there issues with he and Bill Belichick? Well, here we are coming into the latter part of May, and it appears that it's still his team as he is by far and away the starting quarterback. What did you make of all those rumors that were swirling about Mac, Coach Belichick, and how has all that, I guess, calmed over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think it is clear that even if all of those rumors weren't completely and totally true, even if there was some agenda behind some of them, it was clear that Mac Jones and Bill Belichick were not on the same page and did not have the greatest of relationships, really from the early middle portion of last season, straight up through a month or two ago. You just listen to Bill Belichick's public comments, and he really went out of his way to not give any sort of public praise for Mac Jones, would not say that he's the Patriots starting quarterback, really went out of his way to not pump his own players' tires, which was a very stark difference from both the way that he talked about Cam Newton a year or two ago and even the way he talked about Jones last summer, where he was saying how the Patriots are going to do everything in their power to put the best possible supporting cast around Mac Jones and do all they can to help him be successful. I agree with you. I do still think that Mac Jones is the starting quarterback for the Patriots. I think he's the best quarterback on the Patriots. But the fact that Bill Belichick has refused to really say that, and coupled with the fact that Bailey Zappi, Mac Jones' backup, did play far better than anybody expected while Jones was sidelined with a high ankle sprain early last year, it creates whether it's not a full-blown quarterback controversy, at least some quarterback uncertainty. Now, I think Mac can go out and really silence a lot of that if he performs well this spring and then performs well in training camp. But if he struggles at all, really, as they adjust to this new offense, those Zappi rumors are going to continue to percolate. So I think there's a lot of pressure on Jones to really kind of solidify the fact that he is the right quarterback for this team.
Zach, you mentioned Bill O'Brien earlier, the relationship he's had with Mac Jones from their Alabama ties, obviously. How much of a calming influence do you think that'll be on Mac?
Yeah, it was interesting actually talking to O'Brien for the first time we got to speak with him. I think it was a month ago or so. He really downplayed that relationship, saying that they basically just kind of overlapped for a month or so. They met each other once or twice, and that was about it. Even if he was kind of going out of his way to downplay that storyline, I do think it'll help. And I think it'll just help the fact that Mac Jones is a very smart guy. He's a guy that likes to know the why of what he's doing on the football field. I don't think he's someone who necessarily has to agree with anything and everything, but he needs his coaches to explain to him, okay, this is why we're doing this. This is the reason that we're putting you guys in these situations. That's not something that the Patriots coaches were really able to do last season, and I think that caused a lot of the friction between Jones and the coaching staff. That's not going to be an issue with Bill O'Brien. Like I said earlier, he's a longtime offensive coach, longtime quarterbacks coach, and he's also a pretty fiery guy himself. So I think he and Mac Jones will have a very kind of open and honest relationship, and I think that's something that both of them are going to appreciate.
A couple of more for Zach Cox of Nesson and the Nesson Patriots podcast as our AFC East preview continues here on 1010XL. A couple of the additions we talked about earlier, Juju Smith-Schuster. Mike Gesicki is probably a top 10 tight end in the NFL. There was just no tight end market for either he or Dalton Schultz, so I believe he goes to New England on kind of a one-year prove-it deal, very similar to what Evan Ingram did down here in Jacksonville, and boy, Ingram proved it. Gesicki would like to do much of the same in Foxborough, but you add he with Hunter Henry. I know the Jonnu Smith thing didn't work out, but I got to tell you, Zach, Henry, Gesicki, Juju Smith-Schuster, I mean, they got some weapons, right, on that offense.
Yeah, it's hard to say that the Patriots aren't an improved team offensively, especially from the skill position perspective. Gesicki was a really interesting pickup. As you mentioned, he got a super cheap contract. A lot of that was because, as you mentioned, the tight end market didn't really materialize. I think the way some people were expecting. And he's also coming off a pretty disappointing season. He was just an awkward fit for the offense that Mike McDaniel is trying to run down in Miami. But he had 700 receiving yards, I think 6 or 7 touchdowns 2 years ago, was a really productive player. Bill Belichick's spoken highly of him in the past and his ability to create mismatches in the passing game because he's essentially not even really a tight end. He's basically a big wide receiver. He's kind of similar to Evan Ingram in that way. You kind of have to use him as a 6'6", 250-pound slot receiver, which is not usually the type of player that the Patriots have gone after in the past. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Bill Belichick and O'Brien kind of fit him into what they want to do offensively. But yeah, certainly some intriguing additions. Not really the kind of marquee Pro Bowl caliber type pass catcher that a lot of Patriots fans were looking for. There's a lot of people around here that wanted DeAndre Hopkins or Odell Beckham or even Jerry Jeudy, somebody on that level. Didn't really see a move like that materialize for the Patriots. But again, I think they did a lot of positive things to improve the group around Mac Jones this year.
I mean, look, the reality of the situation when we go to the defensive side of the ball, you got to see Aaron Rodgers twice. You got to see Tua and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle twice. And you got to see Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs twice. That is a tall order, even for Bill Belichick and that coaching staff there with the Patriots. But how is the Patriots defense shaping up right now?
It should be good. They basically took an approach this offseason where they said, all right, we like what we have. Let's just bring everybody back. They essentially re-signed and kept just about every contributor from that defense last season. Then they went out and used all of their early round draft picks really on defensive players. They got Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback from Oregon, down at number 17 in the first round. He was a player that pretty much everyone before the draft expected to go in the top 10, if not at 5, 6, 7. He was a guy who slid a lot more than people were expecting. And then Keon White, the D end from Georgia Tech, they picked up in the second round, reportedly a player that they would have considered in round 1 if Gonzalez wasn't there. So those are two potential impact additions to a Patriots defense that, again, is pretty much intact from last season. The biggest question is at free safety for them. Devin McCourty, their starter there for really the last decade plus. He retired this offseason. Still is not completely clear how the Patriots are going to replace him back there. They have a lot of players that have played that position before, that have some experience there, but they don't really have a one-for-one replacement for a guy that didn't miss a game, I believe, over his final 7 seasons or 8 seasons. So that's going to be a big loss. And then obviously the factors that you mentioned, that the Patriots now play in an AFC East that features some pretty prolific offenses that they're going to have to see 6 times a year. Certainly going to be a challenge. They did have some issues against some of those more talented quarterbacks and more talented offenses last season. But it's clear that they do feel pretty confident about the group they have assembled because they pretty much decided to just bring everybody back from last year.
Final moments here with Zach Cox of NESN and the NESN Patriots podcast. All right, Zach, every publication you look at, everybody you talk to, seemingly has the Patriots at number 4 in the division, yet a lot of these prognostications have the Patriots at 7 and 10 or 8 and 9. I don't think anybody thinks they're going to be dreadful necessarily. They're just in a ridiculously tough division. I mean, is that how you see it, or do you think they could surprise some people this year?
I think they could surprise some people. I'm not going to say that they're a Super Bowl contender or anything like that. I don't think they're back to that level. But I do think that this is a team that can win double-digit games and can make the playoffs most likely as a wild card. I know that the preseason predictions around the AFC East are pretty strong for the other competitors in that division, but some of those teams do have some question marks. I mean, you don't know how the Aaron Rodgers kind of integration process is going to go in New York. You obviously have the Tua concussion issues and concussion history down in Miami, and the Bills, they're kind of nearing the end of that window where they can be that kind of truly dominant team without making some real changes. So I don't know. Again, I'm not going to say that the Patriots are going to go 13-4 and be in the AFC Championship game. I don't think that's going to happen. But if I had to make a prediction right now, I would say they're a 10-win team. And they're in there as a wild card. I do think they're going to be a much better team and have a much better on-field product than what people saw from them last season.
Boy, New England sports fans, they were on top of the world for a long time. They need the Patriots to be good. Zach, my in-laws are from Maine. I was with them when I saw the Boston Bruins lose in overtime of Game 7. I don't think they've fully recovered yet, and we see what's happened with the Celtics. So, man, the Patriots being good this year would really help those sports fans out, would it not?
Yeah, people were hoping for a much happier spring up here than what we've gotten from the Bruins and the Celtics over these last couple of weeks. So, yeah, certainly going to be some people expecting not a return to Tom Brady era heights, which, again, I don't think is realistic. But I do think that they're going to give the fans a better show than they did last year, at least.
Hey, leave us with this. Brady is going to be honored in the home opener. I mean, that's got to be one of the biggest deals in franchise history when he returns to Foxborough, correct?
Yeah, it's going to be enormous. I mean, I looked, the last numbers I saw for tickets for that game were already over like $800-900, and that's for a week 1 game of a team that finished below 500 last season. So really shows you, yeah, the level of impact that Tom Brady still has here in New England. And yeah, that's going to be a very memorable night for a lot of Patriots fans, I'm sure.
Zach Cox of NESN and the NESN Patriots podcast. Zach, really appreciate the time, my friend. We'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
And thank you to Zach Cox of NESN and the NESN Patriots podcast for joining us tonight here on Hacker After Dark as our look around the AFC East continues. We've been to Buffalo. We've been to New York. Tonight, New England. Tomorrow, we will finish it up in Miami. It is certainly a very, very good division. New England, kind of the forgotten team. Yeah, there's some talent there in Foxborough. There is no question about that. So thank you to Zach Cox of NESN for joining us tonight here on Hacker After Dark. Well, that'll just about wrap it up. It has been a very busy night, as they tend to be from time to time here on 1010XL and 92.5 FM. Again, Zach Cox of NESN talking New England Patriots. Thank you to Ira Schofel, warchant.com, talking Florida State. Still probably, it appears, very unhappy with the Atlantic Coast Conference. Can anything be done about that with the revenue, with things that are going on? We will see, but certainly appreciate Ira for joining us tonight. Back in hour number 1, my man Chad Forbes of @NFL Draft Bites on Twitter. Love talking NFL ball with Chad. He's still very high on the Jaguars, although certainly had some questions about their draft picks last month. And Kyle Newman of the Denver Post stopped by as the Jaguars have a brand new kicker, Brandon McManus. After 9 years with the Denver Broncos, Brandon McManus was released on Tuesday. He signs in Jacksonville today, and the Jaguars at the same time release last year's kicker, including the guy that literally won the Charger game at the gun there, Riley Patterson, waived today by the Jacksonville Jaguars in place of Brandon McManus. So certainly a surprise to some, but appreciate Kyle Newman of the Denver Post for joining us on short notice here this evening. We'll be back tomorrow night on a Friday, and we'll close out the week here beginning at 8 o'clock. Dylan Denmark was your producer tonight. Dylan, great job as always. I'm the hacker Ryan Green. And Jacksonville, thank you for spending your Thursday evening with us right here on Hacker After Dark on 1010XL and 92.5 FM. So for all of us here on HAD, have an absolutely terrific remainder of your Thursday evening, and we will talk to you tomorrow night on a Friday beginning at 8 o'clock. Until then,